Hello there, my beautiful internet friends. Welcome back to Trauma Talk. Thank you for joining me here today. Now, today's video is going to be slightly different than what I would normally do here on Trauma Talk, but I feel very compelled to go in this direction and to make this video for those people who it might resonate with. Guys, I have a quick announcement to make here as we dive in. After a lot of deliberation, I decided to open up a specific Patreon community for purity culture related videos and resources. Extra videos and more in-depth videos on this topic will be released there, as well as a book club, voting power on next video topics, community access, Patreon-only live streams, and more. I absolutely realize that this isn't a topic everyone wants to hear about, so I wanted to create a community that was safe and specific for that. If you're interested in supporting this aspect of my channel, check out the link on screen or click in the description down below. Thank you so much. Now let's dive back in. I'm going to be going through a video from a channel called Nate and Sutton and talking about the aspects and the potentially very damaging aspects of purity culture that they promote. So I polled all of you guys over on my community page and asked you if you'd want to hear about purity culture some more. It's something that the more I've gone through my life, I've realized how incredibly damaging and honestly traumatizing it has been to me and my relationship and how I view myself, my worth, my gender, my sexuality, my marriage, my relationships. It very, very much impacted what happened to me with being sexually assaulted. If you have never heard about purity culture, I'm going to put a link down below so you can learn a little bit about it. In this video, I'm not going to really go into depth about the explanation of what it is or how it works, but rather I'm just going to talk through this video by Nate and Sutton. And the final thing before we actually hit play here is I really want you to know I am a person of faith. I love people of faith. Most people in my life are Christians. I hold a lot of very Christian beliefs. I think I would classify myself as a Christian, but that doesn't disqualify or exclude the fact that some teachings are really harmful. It is people interpreting scripture. People generally think that they're right. And an aspect, a portion of the evangelical far-right Christian church took these ideas about gender and sexuality and dating and touching and marriage and all of that, packaged it into this idea that it shoved down teenagers' throats for many years of their lives. And I don't think they got it right, and I do know that it's caused a lot of damage. Nate and Sutton seem like lovely people. They really do. I really think that their intentions are in the right place. I think they want to share what they know and what they believe. Their camera equipment and lighting is absolutely gorgeous. I could learn a thing or two from them, but I do think what they're recommending and giving out as advice is really hurtful, really harmful. What I'm about to express is my opinion and mine alone. Take it or leave it. And with that being said, let's dive in.
So what's up guys, Nate and Sutton here, back with another video. Today's topic is Christian dating boundaries. Such a big topic because if you are really serious about honoring God, not only with your life, but with your relationship and your future marriage, then you gotta get the dating boundaries in order. So let's talk about actual Christian dating boundaries.
So the whole title of this video is Let's Talk About Christian Dating Boundaries. So they are sharing their thoughts, their perspectives based on their life experience and their interpretation of scripture, which is fine. What I am sharing with you right now is my life experiences and my thoughts and my opinions and my interpretation. However, they are speaking as authorities on this issue, on what boundaries Christians should have when dating other Christians. It's important to remember when you're watching people like this that they actually aren't the authority, that they are just sharing their own personal opinions. And here's the thing, I have talked to pastors. I was dating a guy all throughout high school, and proper boundaries being in place was something that was very important to me. And so I'd talk to different youth group leaders about, what like how far is too far? Like what should I stay away from? What should we stay away from? And everyone had a different answer. Everyone had a different answer. There are people who think that holding hands before marriage is too far. And if that's what they want for themselves, fantastic. But professing that and pushing that onto other people is not fantastic. There were other leaders I talked to who were like, as long as you don't, fully sleep together, you should be fine, whatever. Everyone draws their boundary in a different place. And so what we're about to listen to is just their idea that they are stating as if it should be everyone's idea in Christianity, not based on any scripture, just based on what they feel like, on what they think, on their own experiences.
I know one that we talked about in a previous video is not being in a room alone together. I feel like just that little thing could probably save you a lot.
That is something that I was encouraged towards a lot when I was a youngster. I was told not to be alone with men, not to ever be alone with the person I was dating, because sexual attraction is so strong that if you're alone, there's basically no way you could just tear each other's clothes off, and that's not how that works. For some people, perhaps in some situations, that's how that works, but to state it as if it's a universal truth that you really shouldn't be alone with someone of the opposite gender because you don't know what's gonna happen gives this idea so much more power than actually exists. The idea that you just cannot control yourself, first of all, is not accurate. Second of all, is really harmful. Third, really contributes to like rape culture on a large scale. But it also insinuates this idea that it's something that'll just take over and you have no say in it. You do have a say in it. You have a say in what you choose to do and what you don't choose to do. And if you don't feel like it's right for you morally or spiritually to be alone with another person, again, that's your choice. Pushing that on other people is ridiculous.
I think that I would not even kiss before marriage.
If that's what he wants for himself, then absolutely, he should adhere to that. Whatever your own personal physical boundaries are, adhere to those, and other people should respect them. But in this whole section, they are insinuating that kissing is even really a little bit too far. Again, that's entirely opinion-based.
Like if you really want to go there, if you really want to be intense and, you know, do your best at honoring God in a relationship, I think that makes the most sense because God tells us to flee from sexual immorality. So is fleeing like, all right, let's kiss and then let's make out and then let's see where my lips go next, you know?
There's very much an argument of the slippery slope in purity culture that if you hold someone's hand, you're gonna wanna like hug them. If you hug them, you're gonna wanna hold them too long. Maybe your hands will go places. Maybe you'll start kissing. If you start kissing, maybe you'll start kissing too hard. If you start kissing too hard, maybe clothes will come off. It's this whole idea that, but it all has to start somewhere, right? So in an ideal world, maybe you should just never interact with anyone of the opposite gender ever so that you don't end up sleeping with them, right? Yes, physical connection, physical intimacy, affectionate touches tend to go in a certain direction, but you also get to decide where that ends. Since they're expressing their opinions here, I will also express mine and say that there is absolutely, in my opinion, nothing morally or inherently or religiously or even theologically wrong with kissing someone.
I mean, even hugging.
Oh no.
Again, you get to decide for yourself where you want your physical boundaries to be in any relationship. And with that being said, I don't think you should listen to other people about what those have to be.
I mean, if you really think about it, our world, hugging is so common. I mean, we hug strangers. But if you really think about what hugging is, you're like pressing your body up against another person's body.
I'll forever worry about you hugging people now.
I know, this topic, and when we were preparing for this video, it even made me think about this stuff. Like,
I hug my dad and my brother. Is that weird? Is that wrong? No, it's not. Because there's nothing inherently sexual about hugging someone. I've hugged many people. I'm a hugger, if I know you. There doesn't have to be anything weirder or deeper or darker or more sexual about it. It's a hug. But again, on the other hand, if you personally feel like that's a boundary for you, respect that.
Hugging, like I'm thinking I'm all side hugs from here on out.
Purity culture Christians are very big fans of the side hug.
Another boundary that I think is a good one, it's not a sexual boundary, it's more of just like a preserving the relationship kind of boundary. Personally, I don't believe that you should have friends of the opposite sex that are just your friends. Like me having guy friends that are just my friends and he's not really friends with them and vice versa. Or me like hanging out with guys and he's not there. I don't think you should be doing that just to protect, you know, what you have. And to just show respect and honor for who you're with.
So Sutton goes on to suggest that you should not have friends of the opposite gender because it's potentially disrespectful to your relationship. And for the record, if that's what you in a relationship decide both for yourselves and agree that that's how you're going to function, fantastic, good for you. However, promoting the idea that having friends of the opposite gender is basically dangerous and kind of disrespectful to your marriage as a whole for everybody is very odd to me. I have friends that are male. My husband has friends that are female. I trust him, and so I don't have a problem if he's talking with them. I don't have a problem if he has friends. If either of us ever get weird about something, we talk about it. If either one of us is ever uncomfortable with the person that, you know, the other person is talking to, it's a conversation, it's a discussion because we want to respect each other, but there is nothing that is wrong with having friends of any gender if you're in a relationship. And I feel like it really contributes to this idea of you can't control yourself, you don't have any control over, you know, yourself, your own body, so don't talk to other people of the opposite gender, don't be alone with them, spend all your time with your husband or wife or whoever it is.
The thing to think about is that when you're dating somebody, that they are not actually yours. You know, you have not stood before God under a covenant, promising till death do you part, have not made these promises and oaths under God. So they're actually someone else's future spouse.
No, they are not. This is an idea that is highly talked about in purity culture. This idea that you are not your own, you belong to your future spouse. And if you're thinking that's such an outdated idea, that's weird, no one thinks that anymore. Their channel, for instance, has 133,000 subscribers. A similar channel called Paul and Morgan has 132,000 subscribers. And this video was filmed back in September. This is an idea that is still very much believed believed, very much adhered to. It is not just a niche thing. It's really romanticized and promoted as this beautiful idea that like you and your body belong to your future spouse, and don't you want to say that for them and present yourself as this perfect, pure, gift to them on your wedding day or your wedding night or whatever. So you're kind of supposed to treat each other like you're all just someone else's spouse, whether you're married or not, whether you have any intention of doing so. And that's really ridiculous because you're your own person. You get to be you. You belong to yourself. Your body belongs to yourself first and foremost. If you choose to share any part of yourself with another person, that's fantastic. If you choose to get married, that's a beautiful thing. However, you don't belong to your future spouse in the form that you are now.
So it's very important to view the people that you're dating in that way, that on their wedding day, can you shake their future husband or wife's hand and say, I took care of her, I took care of him, knowing that you respected them.
I like that, thinking about that.
For the record, Nate, I agree with you. I think you should be able to shake someone's hand on their wedding day, and if you maybe dated in the past, be able to say, I was not an asshole. That's fantastic. I'm a big fan of that, so I agree with you on that part, but I don't agree with you on the idea that the reason you're doing that is because you can say, hey, I didn't kiss your wife back when we dated, well before you met.
So the way that God describes sex in the Bible is two becoming one flesh, which you really think about it is a pretty powerful thing.
Sutton, I absolutely agree with you. I think it is a very powerful thing. However, I think you think it is much more powerful than it actually is.
When two become one flesh, I think it clouds your judgment and it makes it hard for you to see the other person clearly because you're just so connected in that way that it could make you stay with someone that you're maybe not even supposed to be with.
That's the thing though, you are really connected with someone when you are intimate with them in any sense. You get to know someone in a totally different light. It's not detracting from what you know about them. It can add to it. And I don't think it's something everyone should do. I'm not promoting that you need to sleep with people before you're married. I think that's an entirely personal choice. Whatever choice you make there, I just hope you make it for yourself and not out of shame or guilt.
Yeah, and we hear stories all the time of women being in abusive relationships and like physically abused, and we're like, how can they possibly be staying in that relationship? Well, it might be because they have like became one flesh spiritually and tied their souls with that person, that it almost becomes impossible for them to actually leave the relationship.
So I have a hard time fully articulating why I disagree so strongly with what Nate just said. Yes, sex or sexuality can be a piece of why someone might stay with someone who's abusing them. But understand that abusive relationships are very complicated and there are so many different reasons why someone stays. Like I talked about in the whole soul ties video, if you're intimate with someone, they're now a part of your soul, your innermost being, the part that makes you who you are, and you slept with them, they might be a horrible person and treating you miserably, but they're a part of you now, so that's why people stay. That's why people stay in abusive relationships. And again, I'm not gonna argue that that's not part of the reason why sometimes people stay in abusive relationships, but promoting this idea that the person you are intimate with is now part of you for all eternity only helps promote the idea that you should stay with someone who's really horrible for you. There's so much emphasis placed on first experiences, specifically kissing, hugging, losing your virginity, and the person that you give away those things to now holds a bigger and bigger piece of you. It's built up to be this massive thing. And yes, again, sex is a very powerful thing, but it is not your entire being. It's not your entire identity. You are not giving away pieces of yourself that you cannot get back if you choose to be with someone. Your soul is not altered by that choice. And unfortunately, this particular aspect or brand of Christianity promotes that idea, and I think it honestly contributes to abusive relationships. It tells men and women who are sleeping with someone or have slept with someone that they are now that person's person forever, that they've slept with someone's spouse, and that better be their spouse, otherwise they're committing adultery before they're even married, but that's beside the point.
Well, it might be because they have like became one flesh spiritually and tied their souls with that person, that it almost becomes impossible for them to actually leave the relationship.
Yes, sometimes abusive relationships can feel absolutely impossible to leave. And perhaps I would even argue oftentimes it is because you feel a connection with this person. You want to love them, you want to believe that they love you back, even if they are treating you really harmfully. But if that is the case for you or ever has been, please know that your soul is not tied to that person. There is no connection on a soul level, on an eternal level, to that being who is treating you badly. There are so many reasons why it's hard to leave abusive relationships. It's very important that you find a safe way out, but believing that you are tied to someone on a soul level is not a reason that you should have to believe in.
We may be in a relationship with someone that we're not even intended to marry, but because you've had sex with them, it's like you feel so spiritually, physically, and emotionally connected to them that it's like you feel like you can't leave.
Yeah, or you've already given that to someone in your mind you're like, oh, I have to marry them because I've already given them this of me, and you don't want to have to like be in another relationship and tell that person, well, I've already given this away.
Yes, I think that is really true, but the reason for that is because of the teaching. It's not because inherently, if you sleep with someone, you're just connected and that's it. It's because the church in purity culture places so much emphasis on sex to an insane amount. Again, it's a really important thing. It's a really powerful, beautiful, difficult, awesome thing. But this whole culture promotes this idea that you have to save your virginity for marriage. And so if you've given that away before marriage, you should probably just marry that person because you've already done it. And that's just it. You guys should just get married now, which is ridiculous to think because there's so much more that goes into choosing to marry a person, to joining your lives together than the first time you slept with someone. It's a lot more complicated than that. But purity culture boils it down to this one simple thing. Okay, so yes, let's say you have slept with someone, you end that relationship, you move on to another relationship, and you have a conversation with that person talking about your sexual histories. It's not some great letdown to tell someone about your prior experiences because they are yours. Your sexuality does not belong to your partner then or ever. It's something that you can choose to share with someone should you so desire, but they don't own that part of you. It's not an apology if you say, hey, I slept with someone before I even knew you, before I met you, but you weren't taking anything away from them.
So a crazy thought. This may be true, it may not be.
Now, this next part I feel like illustrates a big part of purity culture, and that's making up ideas that don't actually exist in the Bible and then teaching them like they're fact. Now, I appreciate the fact that he prefaces this saying, I don't think this is actually anywhere in the Bible, but then he goes on to talk about this idea longer into the video.
So a crazy thought. This may be true, it may not be, but I honestly believe that God may have someone intended for us to marry, and if we don't honor him in that relationship, such as sleeping together or being physically intimate in a way that is not honoring to him, that person could be taken away from you.
I feel like I'm doing this a lot. I feel like I'm like begging to the camera, begging to Nate and Sutton to please stop teaching this. I'm begging to my youth group pastors in the past, please don't have taught me this. But the idea that Nate has just presented, if you're sexually immoral, if you go too far with someone, and again, everyone's definition of too far varies, but if you go too far with someone, God's probably, he might, I'm just saying, it doesn't say in the Bible, but it definitely could be the case that God's gonna punish you by taking away the partner that he had planned for you for your entire life. But you know what? You kissed that person too long and now you don't even deserve it anymore. How harmful is that? How much does that contribute to someone staying in a relationship that's really bad for them? Because you know what? You did the thing, whatever the thing is, with that person. God canceled out your soulmate now, so you might as well stay with them because who's gonna want you? Like, that is sincerely the mindset that it creates. So then Nate goes on to talk about this friend that he had that he believes that this happened to. And again, there's not, scriptural backing for it, but based on experience, it is true that God takes away people, from you, from your future, if you mess up, in quotes, with someone else.
To give you an example of that, actually, one of my best friends, he told me that God promised him that the girl that he was dating at the time would be his future wife as long as they didn't sleep together. Unfortunately, they did, and then they ended up breaking up. So that's kind of an example of what I'm talking about, I'm not sure you can find that anywhere in the Bible that it says that, but based on experience, I believe that could be true, and that would be such a sad and horrible thing.
It'd be really sad and horrible if God believed in punishing you by taking away beautiful things for your future because of a decision that you made. For the record, I have covered this in other videos, but I am talking about all of this only in the aspect presently that it is all by choice. This purity culture ideology also covers anyone who's ever been abused or sexually assaulted or had things taken from them that they did not choose to give away, but it's still counted against them, which is the most dark and twisted part of purity culture, in my own personal opinion. But absolutely nowhere in the Bible is this idea ever talked about. Jesus never mentioned it. Nowhere in the New Testament does it even suggest that this is how God functions, and I think it'd be a really screwed up God to serve if he was like that.
The next thing we want to talk about is how sex is so much more than a physical connection. It's spiritual, it's physical, and it's emotional.
I think it can be so much more than that. Again, I think for many people it is, but not for everyone. Not everyone has a deep emotional, spiritual connection with sex or sexuality, or with the person that they're with, or with a certain situation. A lot of people can sleep with someone and not have some deeper meaning. But I do agree that it is a more powerful thing than we generally give it the power of. I can't talk. Let's continue.
Not only is it physical, but it's spiritual, it's emotional. You're like literally tying your souls together. Literally tying your souls together.
You're literally not, Nate. You are not tying your souls together. Nowhere does it state that in science, in theology, in the Bible that you follow, anywhere else. You are not tying your soul to another person. You are connecting with them for that moment. Does that lead to greater feelings of connection and perhaps deepening a relationship? Definitely, in some cases, but you are not tying your soul to that person. I don't know, this is all what I was taught growing up. Again, by the church, not really by my parents. My parents put me in church, and then I soaked up all that information. I dove into the church harder than they were at that point, right? But these ideas have had such a negative impact on me long term. The idea that you can't control yourself, that sex is this horribly powerful thing, that you're giving away pieces of yourself, that's so damaging to a young person's psyche, or to any person's psyche, how they view themselves. Purity culture is much deeper than this, but it is just kind of a window in. This is how some people think, and if this is you, if this is what you choose to adhere to for yourself, that's great. Good for you. I respect you. I respect your boundaries. Other people need to as well. However, promoting these ideas, which are opinions, as truth based on scripture, even though you have extrapolated way beyond what scripture ever covered, is really harmful. Hurts people. Honestly hurts people. It has hurt me deeply, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to repair how I view myself, how I view my sexuality, how I view my gender, how I view my identity. So there's a lot more to this video. If you want to see me review the second half of the video, let me know in the comment section down below. Again, none of this is against faith or Christianity. I think both can be beautiful, beautiful things. I am a person of faith myself. None of this is against Nate and Sutton. I think they are sincere people. I think they are talking about what they've been taught to talk about and taught to believe and just regurgitating it, but it's harmful when you have a platform and you're telling other people these are your boundaries and this is what it means, in my own personal opinion. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I love you. I'm thinking about you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.